Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday Talk Show with me, your host, Yvonne Gorman. This is Series 3, Episode 2 of the Tuesday Talk Show, coming to you live. Anything can happen. We're going live on 3 different channels. We've got its own Tuesday Talk Show YouTube channel. We have it going live to the Derby Small Businesses Unite Facebook group, which has over 1,200 members. It's also going live to the Essential Print Services Facebook page. So hello and welcome to everyone watching live or on catch up. Please send in your comments and questions. We would love to hear from you and give you a shout out. But this morning we have the PR guru himself, Mr. Greg Simpson. Good morning.
Morning. That was my fake fan noise.
Fantastic. Greg, we're going to go straight into it because everyone who's watched these shows before knows that the time absolutely flies by. So, Greg, tell everyone, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you know? How the hell did you get here?
You're asking that of a guy with a degree in philosophy, Yvonne. So before we start going into any details about existentialism, let's stick to business.
Yes,
so
please.
I used to be a business journalist, and I enjoyed that immensely. But this is quite a while ago. It was based in Derby as well. And in fact, it was so long ago that I used to actually plan out the papers with a pencil and a rule, not a ruler because my dad will tell me off, a rule, and work out the square centimetres of each column. And then the ad team were behind us in the next room trying to sell advertising. So you can see by my grey hair, you can work out how old that is. And then we used to take it up to production at about 6 o'clock in the evening, come back the next morning, and then they were taken out. Old school journalism.
Wow, that is old school.
Yes. And I remember the first story I ever did was in Derby, and it was for Bredsall Priory, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they expanded their fairway, I seem to recall, or their restaurant, something like that. And then I moved away from that into working with Waterstones when the big store in Nottingham went from being 2 floors to being 4 floors. And I was helping them with their author events because I understood the press part. So it was getting the local press to come in and see Will Self, Stuart Pearce, arrived on a helicopter. That was manic. And then I moved from there to go into a more general marketing role, and I did CIM qualifications after work at City College in Nottingham. And whenever I was working in a marketing role, I always liked the bit where I was doing the press stuff. So I can write brochures and websites and adverts, but it doesn't float my boat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas as soon as I suddenly write about this company's won something or done something or knows something, I gravitated to that. And then I worked for a big agency in Birmingham, and I used to commute from Nottingham to Sutton Coldfield every day, which I wouldn't recommend. Nothing against Sutton Coldfield, it's just the A52. And came back to Nottingham, where I was working in a largish agency there on accounts that included Concept 2, the rower, which you might
have seen. Yeah.
I wasn't that good at it. I looked like I was because I'm 6'5", but
the PR or the rowing?
Both of them. Yeah. the sweat was awful. I couldn't write, I couldn't hold a pen. And then I turned 30 and I thought, you know what, I fancy working for myself. And I resigned 2 days before my 30th birthday to go out on my own. And here we are. 13 years ago, if anyone's trying to do the maths.
What was your personal situation at that time? What risks were you taking?
The risk was probably to my own ego, honestly. Yeah. And I know that lots of people struggle with questions around, am I good enough at this? The imposter syndrome factor. I'm lucky, I don't have that, you may have noticed. But it still can get in the way, because then you think, well, but I know I'm potentially this good, and I need to be this good. I don't dare. And I just carried on because I did have a lot of contacts, which helped. I did, honestly, I went for it. But yeah, was it risky? Not when you're 30, I don't think. Would I do it at 40? Quite such a blasé way? Probably not. I'd have still done it though.
So, many people might have seen photographs of you, Greg, on stage with the likes of Bill Clinton, Richard Branson, and there's always mention of the Blairs as well. So how on earth did you get yourselves in those sort of circles? Were there sort of some wrist pinching moments where you thought, how on earth did I find myself here?
It kind of snowballed from me putting up an exhibition stand. That's where
Yay!
trying to make it relevant there. I was at an event and I had an exhibition stand there about PR. This is early on in my career, and I was working then with a lot with Enterprise Nation, Emma Jones, who you'll know. Yeah. And the show organizer came past my stand early in the morning, and they said, "We might need to pick your brains." And I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "Oh, our keynote speaker is not going to make it." And we don't. I said, "Well, what? You have a PR plan though. If this happens and this happens, and you call this person, and your reserve speaker comes in," and they didn't really. And I asked who it was, and it was Sherry Blair. And I went over and said, "Look, I'll come over and talk to you now." And as I came over, they gave me the mobile phone of one of the organisers and said it's Sky News. And I didn't have a brief at this point, so I just basically suggested that. So Sky News had worked out that Sherry Blair was on her way to hospital.
Right.
And it was all going a bit crazy on Twitter, but they didn't know this, that they suspected. So I calmly suggested they probably shouldn't speculate about the whereabouts of a barrister in the public eye when the barrister's husband is also a barrister, because it could lead to all sorts of problems down the line. And that kind of put them off for long enough. And in the meantime, James Caan was brought in as the reserve guest. So I actually ended up interviewing James Caan later that day. But before that, later in the day, the same organizer came over to me and they said, "Richard Branson's coming in shortly. He's going to do a book signing and all that sort of stuff. Would you like to be there?" I went, "Absolutely, yeah, go for it." And they said, "We've got a slight problem." I said, "Don't tell me he's ill." And they said, no, he needs to do a press conference, but he doesn't have a PR person with him. He has his PA, but his PA doesn't do press conferences. And we don't have one either." And I said, "Oh, I'll do it."
You're it.
I just went, "I'll do it," and then worried about it later.
Yes.
So 2 hours later, I was stood looking across the backstage with 80 journalists here sitting down, and I saw him come up the stairs, and all I said was, "Ladies and gentlemen, you might recognize this chap." That was my incredibly technical introduction to Richard Branson, and then I just did Q&A.
So from that exhibition stand, the organiser's seen that you do PR. He should know what he's doing. Get him in.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's quite Branson-y, screw it, just do it. I could easily have gone, "Oh my God," and run a mile. And part of me probably wanted to, but thankfully the risk-taking part of me was going, "You're not going to get this opportunity again."
Absolutely.
And on the back of that, I ended up writing a sales letter for another organisation to try to get Bill Clinton to come and do an event. And we were working out how to do it. And marketing can get really complicated because we make it complicated.
Make it complicated.
All we did was end up writing a letter that said, "How much money do you want to come to the UK?" and for which charity, and made it really, 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 really clear, rather than try to hide it beyond our mission, vision, values, and all these lovely things. We just asked the question.
What do you want? Yeah,
it's slightly more complicated wording, but it was pretty much that's what it said. And he came. Eventful. That was an eventful 48 hours, an eventful 3 months straight after that.
Were you ever worried at any point that you'd mess it up, to put it politely?
No, because it was all going on live. So I couldn't worry. I knew what I was doing because I was a journalist.
Yes.
And I knew how PR worked. So the only thing that I could mess up really was executing what I know. I wasn't trying to do things I don't do. So the way I am is I know this bit, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
If I'd have sat back and they'd have said, "You're going on stage in half an hour, have some questions prepared," then I'd have probably overcomplicated it and panicked a bit more. But off the cuff, I was fine with that.
Absolutely fantastic. Love that story, Greg. Absolutely love it. We're going to go into a couple more questions now, but more Tuesday talk show style. So past 12 months has been interesting, to say the very least. Have you had any new behaviours or beliefs that you've started over the past year, and have they improved your life?
Oh, wow. Probably just crack on, because we were saying before, when you're in the sort of roles we're in, and when you're in any role as a business owner, and especially if you're exposed to other businesses with ideas, you become a bit of a magpie. And you have this many projects in your head, and I've got 10 I can think of in my head right now. But then you either procrastinate or you do a little bit of each one and nothing gets done, or perfectionism gets in the way and still nothing gets done. And I'm still guilty of this at the moment. But I do a morning, my marketing is done in the morning as the first thing I do, because that's the most important part of my business. It's getting and keeping customers, right? Not the rest of the stuff that other people can do. So that always happens. But what I've got better at doing is giving myself a deadline and going, this bit has to be done this well. And this well to me is very good. But I'm not going to go over and iron it out and worry about it and tweak it nonstop, because it will never get done. So just getting on with things, I think, has been the biggest learning.
Excellent. That's really good. And also doing the marketing in the morning. Many people, are quite apprehensive nervous about marketing because they're not really in it. So to get it out of the way and done, that's a great tip, actually. And like you, I've got a whole list I've got this postcard that follows me around my planner every day with ideas on it, and just want to get some more, scrubbed off, because you just don't know where they're going to lead, do you?
No, so, you don't know where you've put something out there and say, I'm thinking of doing this. And you're not just in a marketing way, because that's exactly what I would do, actually. I would tease it. But people then ask you questions and say, could you also do this? And have you thought about that? And would you like to partner with me on that? Because it's something I thought about. And suddenly like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And now you've got to do it.
You really have to do it, because the people are involved.
Yeah.
What would you say, Greg, is the hardest thing about working for yourself?
Sometimes you just don't feel like it.
Okay.
You just haven't got the energy. Monday mornings, I'm a human being. Some people just, you don't fancy it. And I think you have to acknowledge it, because it's easy enough to give yourself a hard time because you're not working at 100 miles an hour. But I think if that was a member of staff who came to you and they explained the way they were feeling and the way that you're feeling, you'd be like, dude, go and take a day off, please.
Yeah.
Come and do that and tell me more about what you're struggling with here. So as business owners, we don't tell ourselves well done enough. So it can be better if you are part of networks and you can have that, or masterminds or accountability groups, whatever you want to call them, or just texting someone who you know and respect and saying, I'm feeling rubbish today, I just don't fancy it. Yeah. Well, go and have a walk, go and take the dog for a walk, or do something else in the business for the afternoon and get up early tomorrow and crack on, depending on what your business is.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think a lot of that people resonate with as well. I mean, throughout lockdown, I've been much better in taking advantage of the energy changes throughout the day. So in the morning, doing certain tasks that in the afternoon, I just feel like walking through mud with them. Whereas a couple of hours ago, it would have taken me like half the time to do. So just recognizing those patterns and working around them is another good thing to do. Yeah. What would you change about your business, Greg? If you could change one thing about your business or even your industry, what would it be and why?
Oh, about my industry, because I'm using my business to try to change this, hopefully. So I would change about my industry. This whole smoke and mirrors, clever dark art nonsense that we've built up in PR that scares people, frankly. And it's been put up almost as a barrier to entry, because people like me don't want you to do this yourself, because we want you to pay us, frankly. And it's become almost too much. So people are now scared of it, or they're scared talking to the press because, or what if it all goes wrong? But a lot of those barriers have been put in place by my industry to give themselves a job. And I would say this because I've come from the side of the fence as a journalist, but it isn't as hard as people make out. It's just about, and the thing is, people forget as well, it's public relations, right? People call it PR and they forget what it actually is. It's relation. And if people focus on the relations part of public relations, they'd find that getting publicity is not as hard as they think. But the relations part is where people, consultants and agencies, are saying, oh, you definitely need me to hold all of these bits. Now, sometimes you do. You absolutely do. And if you gave me certain projects to look at, I'd be thinking you need expert advice on that. Other times it's like, no, you're fine. You can pick someone's brains about it, but you don't need your hand holding all the way through there. So I think maybe a little bit more honesty from the industry about when things you can do and things you need help with would be helpful.
I know I've seen a lot of interviews for small business owners up and down the country on the news channels. And, these people won't have had PR training, yet they are brave enough to go out there and be interviewed on television. And yes, you can tell the people that are maybe more used to it than others, but at least they're getting out there, aren't they? And they're banging the drum for what they do and small businesses and the causes.
Yeah.
What would be your top tips, Greg, for someone wanting to do a bit of PR themselves? And you mentioned earlier about we don't pat ourselves on the back much, but I think from my experience, PR and getting your stories out there is one way that I use to pat myself on the back and recognise the achievements. I mean, it's a great way of going through my website and just seeing this timeline of stories and achievements and good stuff. What would be your sort of top tips on somewhere to start?
So, again, when I talk to people about PR, they'll say, I'd love to work with you, but I don't have enough news, right? And it's like, no, you don't. I'll be honest with you, you don't have enough news, but you have so many views that would be really helpful to your audience.
Okay, yeah.
And if you're doing marketing correctly, you should be doing that in your wider marketing with blogs and video guides and what you're doing now, Yvonne, and on your social media. So it's taking all the stuff that you would basically say in your owned media, as we call it, your sites, your channels, and then thinking, who would that be useful for in the press in terms of my target audience? And too many people look at PR as, how can I sneak a story away about us being wonderful? It's public relations. You're trying to help a journalist. You're thinking, I'm an expert in, I don't know, high street retail. You should be all over the news right now, not talking about yourself, talking about how small business owners can give themselves a leg up with regards to their presence on the high street, or create compelling offers, or do this or that or the other. I think that's where people, especially experts, which is where I tend to work, they don't see that. So if I'm looking out the window at the moment, I can see a garden. If I was a landscape gardener, I'll be telling you on the local radio how to get your lawn in tip-top shape for the summer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be trying to put a story out saying, we have a new lawn sprinkling service. Now, that might come at the end of the story, but the way I'd get into the press would be, here's how to do it. And it's giving your information away in the same way you do in all the rest of your marketing.
Yeah.
But it's being useful to that journalist who is writing to your audience, whether that's Widget World, Poultry Monthly, whatever it would be.
Awesome House.
It doesn't have to be the Sunday Times every time. It could well be, but it's the same principle, which is, what do I know? What would my customers benefit from knowing? And then they're going to hire me because they know I know it. And how do I turn that information to something useful that the media is going to think, thank you for that, that's really handy, I'll put that in and I'll give you credit for it.
And they might not need it right then and there. They might say, right, okay, that's someone that I can contact in my bank of contacts for that particular topic. And you might not hear from them. And then you'll get a call out of the blue one day and you'll go, oh, okay, yeah, that thing did actually work.
Yeah, or they'll pass it to their friend who was talking about this issue in the mortgage broker. I have a mortgage brokerage client. Mortgage brokers particularly can explain things. Well, how does this 5% deposit thing work? How does Help to Buy work? How does that work? Might not be for me, but I'll give it to my friend who does have that same question. And when people say to me, how does PR and advertising and marketing all work together? Marketing is basically know, like, and trust, right? You can become very well known by taking out a whacking great billboard ad on the side of Wembley Stadium. Doesn't mean I like you, and doesn't mean I trust you. I could be very aware of how much I don't like you and trust you. The PR bit comes into the bit whereas, I know you from the marketing and the advertising, and I think I like you, but I trust you more now because I've seen you in Poultry World or whatever it would be. And when I had, I bought a car at the start of lockdown, hilariously. That guy, who was like a car concierge service, had advertised on the back of a bus. He had a website. He was on social. He had a thing on the calendar in the curry house and all that. And I saw him 8 different times until I finally went, oh, yeah, and I need to get hold of you now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that his bus advertising was failing because he didn't get me when he advertised in February. It was all working together until the timing was right. But he was nudging me.
Yeah.
And eventually the time was right. And I thought, I know I'm going to go to that person.
Yeah. As and when the time is right. And also, I don't think many small business owners realise the extent of their own network right now. You know, make a list of all the groups that you're a part of, even on LinkedIn, the ones you're seeing news feed from, but you don't really realise it's from that group. So look at all your groups online, look at all your existing networks and push that information and those top tips out there to other people. Because like you say, you just don't know who's going to read it, see it. And then the phone call will be, it's like, oh, okay, BBC News, amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they're doing the same thing. They're looking for experts in something. And if you're showing that you're an expert in it, because you're giving away, and people worry about this, oh, I'm going to give away all my knowledge and, you know, people are going to go and take it away from you. They're going to do that anyway. There's a thing called Google, right? And YouTube. If I want to change my radiator valve, I'll find a way. I'll probably do it really badly. But if my plumber shows me how to change a radiator valve and do other things on YouTube, I will probably call that plumber and go, you know what, he's better than I am.
Yeah, just come around and do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are flying through time, Greg, as I know that we would do. But one question I do definitely want to get in today is, what is the best piece of advice someone has given you and how did it affect your life?
Oh, God.
Big question.
It's business advice, actually. And it's a phrase I use a lot, think in pictures. But this does work as well, personally, if you think about manifestation and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But thinking pictures is, if you're talking to me about your news story, I want to know what it's going to look like on the page. Look like, not sound like, because that's what people are going to click on. If you know how the Daily Mail works,
yeah,
you know, that is how the media tends to work now. So you have to think in pictures, which is, if you, let's say you have appointed a new head of something at your firm, and there's a picture of you and that person, and you stood there against a wall, that adds no value whatsoever to the article and to the publication. Whereas if you're up to something like putting up a stand or doing something or making an exhibition of yourself, if you like, I'm going to be more inclined to use that story, whatever the story actually is, because the visual's great.
Yeah.
So that has always been the biggest thing I do with, you know, clients I work with. I always insist on getting a professional photographer or getting them to do something that's a little bit at least different.
Talking about doing things differently, I can see some, is it Marmite or Spam in the background? Tell us a bit more about that,
Greg. I think, well, actually, you did the Spam campaign with me. The Spam campaign is linked to the Marmite thing. So for us, the Marmite thing is, it doesn't matter if you love me or hate me. You know, some people are never going to hire me. It's fine. I'm all right with that. Some people don't love me. So don't be afraid to be Marmite. Just don't be vanilla, whatever you do. You know, no one's going to buy vanilla, are they? And then the Spam thing was because of the whole GDPR campaign. And it was a serious, it was a serious point. People spam marketing, but I was working out, because I was getting things every single minute and they were dull from marketing experts. And I'm thinking, you don't seem very creative. So I bought 100 tins of Spam and posted them out to my prospects. And it was the marketing approach, the Marmite approach, which was, if you don't find this funny, or if you do find it offensive, I am sorry. And let's never speak again. If you're intrigued about who this guy is, who sent you Spam in the post, we can have a chat. And it was just a really honest thing of, it's all right if you don't like this. But I did follow up with recipes for Spam fritters to people who are interested, and I kept it going. And I had lots of people go from being, you know, prospects to suspects and vice versa, and leads. And other people say, Greg, I do actually have someone who does my PR for me, but that was brilliant. And it was just fun. You know, business is really stressful. So if you can't have fun in your marketing, when can you?
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
I'm all for the quirky stuff. I mean, we've done the spam, we've done the love hearts for you, we've done the big teddy bear.
Hearts. I forgot about love hearts. Yeah, that was a Valentine's Day. That was a newsletter as well. Will you unsubscribe? Will you break up with me this Valentine's Day? Because I'm not worried about having 400 people on my newsletter subscription list. I want 100 who care.
Yeah, absolutely.
300 don't matter.
So the top tips I've got so far from you is views and our news, but thinking pictures, and be quirky with your marketing. It's all good stuff. So next question for you, Greg. What gives you the biggest sense of achievement?
Absolutely, without a doubt, texting or WhatsApping a client and say, check this out. And it's a link to some coverage. And then them sending it across. If I see them sending it around their team, and I don't care whether they credit me or not, it's the fact they'll go, oh my God, we're in such and such. It's that bit that I know that they're going to be sort of singing and dancing around the office, all around the Zoom, because they're in the paper or they're on TV or they're on the radio. It's that part of it. It's the result.
Yeah, seeing the result.
Yeah.
And are you a very proactive? You must be proactive in what you do for your clients and your accounts, in that if you see an opportunity and to create an opportunity, if you see one available.
Yeah, it depends how you want to do it. Some people basically pay me to be their professional reactor to stuff, and then to say, here's what we could do. And other people ask me to go out there and do the professional thinking ahead. So it depends on what they do. But most of my clients are basically, they are in my little mental lack book. So when someone says to me, I need an expert on swimming pool hygiene, I will look for one. Yeah, but there will be one. Or how to handle a house, or patio, so, clean a patio. So they're the clients I want to work with, and they're the ones who will, if they understand marketing, will do really well, because they're giving away their advice to position themselves. If they do that, they don't have to worry about competing on price for their job. Yeah. They're the expert, so they name their price to an extent.
We've got some shout outs, Greg, we're going to go over to. Me and D Charity saying great advice, thank you very much. Same from Maria Hansen, MBE. Morning, Yvonne and Greg, great show. Shout out to Fiona Coulson as well, who's joined us this morning. Fantastic. That's just a few that of commenting. We've got time to go through because time is swinging by, and I just really want to get a couple more questions in, if that's okay, Greg.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people starting new businesses and side hustles over the past 12 months. What advice would you give someone about to start out on their own, and how would someone know that they're ready to take that leap of faith?
Oh, wow. I'd probably ask them, why have you done this? Why have you done this? What's the motivation? Is it because of necessity? And in that case, you need to be giving yourself goals and break them down, because it's necessity, because I need to earn this amount of money because of this, that, and the other. Not because of the figure you want either. It's not the income, it's the results of the income, I'd imagine. So in that case, you need to be measuring what you're trying to get out of this and why you're doing it. Unless it's driven by cause, because some people might have decided, you know what, I don't want to work 9 to 5 anymore. I want to do this because this is my passion. Then they should be making sure that that passion is what's being fulfilled by that new job. Because whether you're self-employed or not, it's a job. You've just given yourself a job. Yeah. So you need to make sure, like, congratulations, you've given yourself a job. You need to make sure it's doing what you said it was going to do at the start. And it is my 13th anniversary last week.
Oh, congratulations.
I've, unlucky for some, 2 recessions. It's almost careless. But I was encouraged by my coach to look back at why did you start? And because you lose sight of it along the way. Yes. It's really easy to lose sight of it after 5 years, if you're still about, and 10 years. By 13, it's like, why did you start this? And I looked at why I started it. It was to make it a level playing field for people who are trying to get in the papers. That is still the case. But it's easy to lose sight of that and the other stuff you get sucked into. So Absolutely. It's keeping that front of mind, I think, would be my best piece of advice if you're starting out. Why?
Why
have you done this?
Why have you done this to yourself? So, Greg, I'm going to wrap it up there, because I know that you've got not just this this chat show, but you've also got another webinar imminently this morning.
Like,
you are a wanted man, Greg Simpson.
I've got Graham Norton this evening as well.
Fantastic. And then you'll be on the Chris Evans How to Wow podcast, I'm sure, in no time at all. So to finish off, what is on your bucket list? You mentioned about looking back and finding out the why you started your business, but looking forward, what else do you want to achieve and do?
What, in business?
Well, whatever. It's your question. You answer it however you wish.
Bucket list of business is doing more of this kind of stuff and being able to help more people, one to many, because it's very easy to get, do the one-to-one stuff. And I love that. But the one to many, where you can actually have a bit more of a, I want to help this many businesses by this time. That's what I want to do. And it's just, things get in the way of that are me and my magpie mentality of shiny stuff and a total inability with tech. So I'm now looking at outsourcing all these things because you get in the way of yourself. But I think bucket list wise, it's probably all changed personally because of the last year, hasn't it? I just want to go on a holiday for 5 days in the sun.
I just want a holiday.
I just want some sand between my toes, And I can go to B&Q and get the sandpit. You watch, I'll do a blog on that now.
I was going to say that's your next PR stunt for sure.
I think that's it. But the one good thing about the lockdown thing has been people, I hope, know what they want and what they don't want more. And even if it's I don't want this, that's all right. Rather than I do want this bucket list, it should be what's not in your bucket.
Yeah.
And I think that's been good. Lots of people I know, I do not want to commute 80 miles a day to the office. So how do I get around that as a self-employed or as an employee? And these are the conversations that are going to happen. And the companies that win hearts and minds, PR-wise, are going to be the ones who allow their best staff to do that.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts on the likes of PricewaterhouseCoopers allowing their staff to work anytime, anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, part of me is thinking, were they talking to someone like me, and is it a PR stunt, or is it genuinely because it's not about just attracting employees as well with that. It's retaining them, because the grass is greener. If everyone's been reevaluating their position and they're thinking, well, I know I can go here for a little bit less money. Granted, it's not PwC, but I can pick up the kids on a Friday and take them swimming because it's possible, because I've connected to everything else, or I can go and take them to the school gate. So it's sensible, whether it's a PR stunt or not. I think it's eminently sensible they should do that, because if they don't, it'll be forced on them anyway.
And let's hope those companies stick to their word as well.
This is what will come home to roost, won't it? Because if they've said it out there now, it's out there, it's measurable. Yeah. If people suddenly say that never happened, the culture's not that way, that will come back to bite them on the bum.
And on that bombshell, we will end the show there. Greg, it's been absolutely fantastic. We don't get enough opportunity to have these chats amongst each other. So it's been really, really good this morning to have a proper chat with you and get to know a little bit more about Greg Simpson. I'm going to wrap up the show here, Greg, but I want to come back to you right after for your final thought, to give you a moment to think about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for watching this episode, Series 3, Episode 2 of the Tuesday Talk Show with me, your host, Yvonne Gorman, and my very special guest, the PR guru himself, it's Greg Simpson. And back over to Greg now for his final thought. Go for you, Greg.
My final thought, I think it would be, when I get a client coverage and they dance around the office and get very excited, and I know they're doing that, it really bugs me when that's all they do. So you need to get hold of that media asset and sweat it. Sweat your assets off, guys. So if you get a copy of the magazine, newspaper, the link, make sure you actually use it as the best sales brochure you've ever had, rather than sit there waiting for the phone to ring. It might make the phone ring, but remember, know, like, and trust. You need to be gently nudging people. So treat media coverage as the best sales brochure you've ever had. Sweat your assets.
Sweat your assets is a fantastic final thought, and one I would definitely quote on later on today. Thank you so much, Greg. I'll let you get off to your second webinar, but thank you so much for your time. It's been really good to see you.
Pleasure. Good to see you.